Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this call. We will start in the next 2 minutes. Meanwhile, you can just say hello in the chat. Okay. Um, if we can have the presentation on a present mode. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, and Happy New Year. Compliments of the New Year. Welcome to the launch of our research report on digital shadows, deepfakes used as violence against women in journalism and politics during African election. I am Rispa Arose, and I work for Tanda Community Network as the partnership lead, and will be the moderator for today's exciting agenda. The session is going to be recorded and uploaded afterwards on our YouTube channel, and of course, our websites and all our socials. And today the event will take place in English. And we know that it's a burden for some of us who are French speaking, but there will be another event happening in the French language soon. Feel free to share your questions or comments in the language you feel comfortable with as we kick off with a brief overview of what is in store for us in this session. Over the next hour, we'll delve into the research report, starting with an overview of the report itself, key highlights, and also key recommendations. And then we'll be joined by our colleagues, two who have worked on the research report as in-country researchers, and they'll be sharing case studies from the Namibia and the Ghana. And also we'll get insights into the experiences, findings, and recommendations to address the challenge of tech-facilitated gender-based violence and deepfake threats across the continent. I hope you've had a chance to look through the report, but if not, we will make sure to include it, to include the link in the chat for your reference for the full report. And of course, we will also have ample time for your questions, observations, reflections, and experience that are relevant to these discussions. So feel free to use the chat. And without further ado, I think we can get started. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So just a little bit about Tanda Community Network. We are a community-based organization within the informal settlements of Nairobi, and we are based in Kenya. Our focus is on establishing for, by, and with the community a digital ecosystem that actively addresses digital inequalities within marginalized grassroots communities. And our work is laid out in a community-driven approach, that is the 3 C's. So we have connectivity angle to our work, capacity building angle, and convening angle. Our principle guides these principles, the 3 C's guides us to achieve our mission, which is to foster grassroots-driven development through connectivity. And getting onto the research that we have been working on since last year, mid last year, as elections and democratic processes in Africa becomes increasingly digital, there is a growing reliance on online platforms for communications and engagement. However, this digital spaces also serves as a breeding ground for technology-facilitated gender-based violence, particularly affecting women engaged in politics, media, and journalism. The potential for such violence to undermine women's participation in democracy and erode public trust cannot be ignored. One of the emerging threats in this digital age is deepfakes. Deepfakes, when you hear deepfakes, what is it? It's an AI-generated video or audio clips that takes on the likeness of an individual and then manipulates them to appear to be saying or doing things that the individual did not do. And we are seeing that deepfakes are constantly evolving, making it increasingly difficult to distinguish them from real videos. Presently, we have more than 80 distinct deepfake software applications, and the number is growing. A significant portion of which are available for free. This enables individuals to harness the progress of artificial intelligence. The combination of accessibility and advanced artificial intelligence capabilities creates a fertile ground for the misuse of deepfakes. Some potential areas of concerns include, for example, disinformation campaigns. We see deepfakes can be used to fabricate fake news and also propaganda, swaying public opinions and undermining democratic processes. Another potential area of concern is cyberbullying and harassment, where we've seen malicious actors can create deepfakes to target individuals with offensive or compromising content, leading to emotional distress and reputational damages. Across Africa, we've also seen phishing persist as one of the continent's paramount threats. Incorporating deepfake technology, cyber criminals stands to exponentially enhance the efficacy of the attacks. Deepfakes facilitate socially engineered cybercrime by enabling threat actors to impersonate trusted individuals such as friends, such as families or colleagues, thus exploiting the inherent trust embedded with interpersonal relationships. In 2023, Witness, an organization, collaborated with the Center for Human Rights and the University of Pretoria to tackle the issue of deepfakes and other synthetic media. But they had participants from diverse countries in the region. They had Kenya, they had Nigeria, South Africa, Uganda, and Zimbabwe contributing to a sub-Saharan Africa perspective to this discussion. During the workshop, attendees voiced concerns about the disproportionate impact of deepfakes and synthetic media on individuals already vulnerable due to factors such as gender, profession, and ethnicity. Additionally, the workshop emphasized the necessity of comprehension of the threats posed by deepfakes and emphasized the importance of devising region-specific solutions. This also more recently in an article by News 24 documented that 74% of working age respondents from different countries in Africa were duped by deepfakes communication. Just looking at this statistic, it's quite shocking. And it's a key driving force to increased misinformation and disinformation threatening democracy and credibility of the media. These examples underscores the urgency of addressing the impact of deepfakes and other synthetic media on democratic processes in Africa. And we can see this even just last year, 2024, being a significant year for many African nations in terms of the election. The digital space has become a central platform for political campaigning, offering opportunities for engagement and information dissemination. However, this digital landscape also presents emerging threats, particularly the misuse of deepfakes and its contribution to technology-facilitated gender-based violence against women, journalists, and politicians. The research really looked to answer one question, and the question was, how do deepfakes and other forms of manipulated media contribute to tech-facilitated gender-based violence against women, journalists, and politicians in the context of elections in Ghana, Senegal, and Namibia? And why the three countries is because also last year, Ghana, Senegal, and Namibia were going through an electioneering period. And some of the objectives that the research looked to achieve was to analyze the evolving role of the digital space in election campaign across Ghana, Senegal, and Namibia, assess the specific ways of deepfakes contribute to technology-facilitated gender-based violence against women journalists and politicians. The research also look to compare and contrast the legal and social frameworks in the three countries regarding deepfakes and technology-facilitated gender-based violence, assessing the effectiveness in protecting women, also evaluating experiences and coping mechanisms of women journalists and politicians who have faced any form of violence online. And lastly, to develop evidence-based recommendations for different stakeholders to mitigate the risk of deepfakes and promote a safe and inclusive digital election environment for women. The methodology, we use participatory action research methodology. Here we looked at qualitative research where we did key informant interviews with women politicians, journalists, civil society organizations, and legal experts to explore the experiences, perspective, and existing practices. And this was in the three countries. And also we had a focus group discussion where we had, it went in depth to analyze specific deepfakes incidents targeting women during elections, and also to understand their impact and response mechanism. Data collection, some of the tools we used was the key informant interviews and also the focus group discussions. Sample populations, we engaged women in politics, women in media, women in journalism, and this was in the 3 countries. And in the 3 countries, we worked with in-country researchers who were based within the countries to be able to conduct this research. Some of the ethical considerations for this research was consent from the respondents. Also, since this is a very sensitive topic, just being very confidential of respondents' identities and information. And in the report document, you'd see we've used pseudonyms to really present some of the case studies. Next slide, please. So we are going to have a chance to hear from the in-country researchers. And I just wanted to briefly highlight an overview of the key highlights that were coming from this research. The first one was the limited understanding of relevant terminologies and the specific nature of deepfake-related violence. The research really shows that there's confusion, number one, surrounding terms like deepfakes and fake news. And this has created significant barriers to understanding and mitigating the risk of these technologies. There's also widespread misunderstanding reflects the need for, and we'll see this coming out in the recommendations, needs for public education on deepfakes and also the unique implication beyond just misinformation. So we need to really nuance when we say technology facilitated gender-based violence, what does it mean? And then what does it look and how does it manifest? And then go deeper in the different manifestations. Another highlight is the underreporting of the abuse. And we see this due to fear of being judged or socially isolated. Of course, with underreporting, it comes undermining of efforts to address and prevent such violence. And it also contributes to the scarcity of documented cases. The interviews that the informants the interviews that the in-country researchers conducted revealed that many women are reluctant to report incidents of technology-facilitated gender-based violence because of fear of either social stigma or ineffective of legal recourse. And now this is generally, now if we go deeper to understand how does this manifest with regards to deepfakes, when it's used as a tool to harm and harass women. Another key highlight is the lack of legal framework to address technology-facilitated gender-based violence effectively. And the absence of specific regulations addressing technology-facilitated gender-based violence emerged as a dominant theme in the 3 countries, and participants expressed frustrations over the lack of clear laws to address such issues. Another significant theme was the lack of oversight over social media platforms that enable the dissemination of harmful content. The research notes that while national laws are limited, platforms operating in the region lack meaningful regulations, compounding to victims' challenges in seeking justice. Also with this, there was a highlight on the absence of agencies or body to report such incidents. Lastly, is the lack of advanced technology resources and expertise. that further compounds the problem, making it difficult to detect, investigate, and address deepfake-related crimes effectively. And also the knowledge gap within different stakeholders in the community. There's media literacy gap among both professional and the public that um, um, exacerbates this issue. So those are some of the key highlights, and we'll hear more from the key researchers when they'll be just presenting on the case studies. Next slide, please. So here I'll talk about the key recommendations that are coming from the reports. And we have a couple, and this is through analysis of current trends, policy frameworks, and real-world examples. This report highlights the urgent needs for legislative, technological, and societal measures to address the dangers of deepfakes. As you can see, the first recommendation is around legislation. We're saying these need to develop specific legislations that hold social media platforms accountable for the content shared on their platforms, and also specific legislations that target technology-facilitated gender-based violence and deepfakes at both national and regional level to provide victims with clear legal recourse and establish strict penalties for perpetrators. And at the regional level, if you going into the report, we recommend the support of the establishment of a working group at the Africa Union or the Africa Commission on Human and People's Rights to specifically address concerns around the misuse of artificial intelligence, including the proliferation of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, in an effective marker to then roll out national level policies to guide lawmakers through the new age of artificial intelligence. And of course, at the national level, enforcing current legal framework that protect privacy and personal data, and then also implementing awareness and digital literacy activities for appropriate technology use, and establish new regulations for fair, clear, and transparent information to users, particularly during election period. Another recommendation is towards the platform regulations and content moderation, where we are recommending to incorporate verification systems in social media platforms to automatically review videos and images and audios prior to publication. And also that these systems can detect anomalies and flag suspicious content. We are also recommending investment in technological tools and digital monitoring systems capable of detecting deepfakes, content, and other forms of online abuse. These tools would enable quicker response times and help prevent spread of manipulated media. The report also, the report also recommends awareness and capacity building. This came out very strongly that we need to prioritize media and information, education and training in public policies to assist users in navigating online space. And then, of course, collaboration. Collaboration is quite key. There are ways that different stakeholders can collaborate and leverage on each other's strengths to strengthen the support system, financial systems, resources on human resources, logistical, and also scientific resources in the fight against misinformation, disinformation, and just the fight against technology-facilitated gender-based violence at large. Next on, I will now welcome our in-country researchers to just talk about their experience in conducting the research in their countries, and also some of the key highlights and findings while that everyone should expect in the research. So without further ado, I'll go on and pass on the mic to Jessica Wiras. Jessica Wiras is from Namibia, and she was the in-country researchers doing the research specifically for Namibia. Over to you, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Rispa. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us today for the launch of the Digital Shadows Report. As formally introduced, my name is Jessica Mkwiras, and I'm honored to share Namibia's contributions to this critical research on deepfakes and technology-facilitated gender-based violence against female journalists and politicians. Now, as alluded to, this report reveals the pressing challenges women face in leadership, journalism, and politics when digital platforms are weaponized to silence their voices, especially during elections. I was fortunate to observe elections in Namibia, so I had a closer look at the ins and outs from both civil society, the government, ECN, and the general public. Now, Namibia's story is one of both progress and obstacles. While our country has embraced digital platforms for communication and innovation, these same platforms expose women to significant risk, threatening not only their safety but also the integrity of our democracy. Namibia is known for its political stability and commitment to press freedom. And by 2023, 53% of Namibians were online with social media, accounting for 28.2% of active internet users. Now, these numbers reflect a growing digital presence that offers opportunities for engagement and education at large. However, the increasing connectivity comes with vulnerabilities, as women, particularly in leadership roles, are disproportionately targeted by online harassment, cyber attacks, and disinformation campaigns. Now, these digital threats create barriers to their full participation in public life, undermining their credibility and emotional well-being. To understand these dynamics, we conducted a participatory research process, and our work included a literature review, it included key informant interviews and group workshops, all tailored to Namibia's unique context. Interestingly, during the initial stages of the research, it became clear that many participants were not familiar with the term technology facilitated gender based violence. Now, this lack of awareness is itself a challenge, as it means that such incidents are often reported more broadly as online gender-based violence rather than deepfakes as a tool of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, making it even more difficult to recognize and address the specific aspects of technology-facilitated gender-based violence. Now, despite this, the participants' experiences and insights proved invaluable in shedding light on the issues when they got to understand the terminology and how it affects them differently. Now, first, we reviewed articles. We had to basically read reports and case studies to identify the gaps in existing legal frameworks and understand the broader trends of technology-facilitated gender-based violence and deepfake misuse within the country. Then we conducted 5 in-depth interviews with female politicians, journalists, and civil society leaders. uncovering the personal and professional impact of this digital threats, and basically just understanding their personal experiences as it relates to technology-facilitated gender-based violence. We held a participatory workshop with a different group of women. So the key informant interviews were with a different set of women from the different backgrounds as mentioned, and then the workshop looked at a different group of women as well, just to get different perspectives to enhance the research report. So this workshop discussed basically solutions focusing on building resilience and enhancing digital safety for women politicians and women journalists. The findings from this research they were striking, and even more so because the research was conducted before our general elections in November. But to our surprise, it became a bit more worse than it was when we were conducting the research. For example, during the elections, Ms. Anna Nicodemus, a journalist at the Namibia Broadcasting Corporation, she was suspended after discussing unverified claims about the health of the president-elect, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, and these claims later debunked as AI-generated disinformation, not only damaging Anna's reputation, but it also highlighted the urgent need for safeguards against such attacks. The reason why I'm emphasizing on this is because even though the research was conducted way prior to the elections, it would have been more significant had it been conducted after the elections, because we only had one female candidate running for elections last year, and there was just a lot going on because they were speaking about her health, how old she is, and basically discrediting her worth of running for president, right? In other incidents, we had a fabricated video targeting the specific candidate who was running for elections, circulating widely on social media, basically just videos of her fainting, which was fabricated because she had never fainted in her life before at a rally. But such content was circulating across social media to basically deem her unfit to take up a space in office. Now, although eventually exposed as a deepfake, the damage to public trust and the candidate's campaign was irreversible. So these examples underscore how digital threats can silence women and undermine democratic processes. Our research also identified key challenges. Namibia's draft cybercrime bill, that's for instance, does not adequately address the complexities of deepfakes and online harassments. Now, apart from the cybercrime bill, Namibia does not have any existing law that speaks directly to addressing complexities of deepfakes or even just online harassment. The only thing we're depending on currently is the Communication Act and the underlying laws within the Constitution itself. Now, the fear of stigma prevents many women from reporting incidents of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, as discussed in the workshop, leading to underreporting and limited awareness. Additionally, Namibia lacks the local tools and expertise needed to detect and counter deepfake content effectively, while social media platforms fail to moderate harmful content adequately. The only organization that we have standing right now that can verify information online is the Namibia Fact Check. But the Namibia Fact Check is not all over the internet, unless, of course, you are media literate to see through the lens and understand that this seems a bit offish, but otherwise there's no there aren't any tools or expertise to basically detect whether this is misinformation or disinformation. Now, to address these issues, our report outlines actionable recommendations. First, we need to strengthen Namibia's legislation by enacting laws specifically targeting technology-facilitated gender-based violence and just the overall general online gender-based violence and deepfakes, and then aligning them with the international standards. Secondly, we must invest in technology to develop tools capable of detecting manipulated content. I believe raising awareness through public campaigns and media literacy initiatives is essential to educate users about digital threats. Why we added this recommendation was that during the key informant interviews and throughout the workshop, this is the one topic that came up often, to say that we do understand the laws and the loopholes in place, but how do we navigate these complexities online? So the major issue that came up was the media illiteracy. So then we decided to add this and perhaps look at workshops that can educate either the general public, your citizen journalist, your general journalist, to just be able to detect this type of harms online. We should also create networks offering psychological, legal, and technical support for victims. Because in the case of Anna, she went through whatever she went through, but then there's no psychological backing after they've gone through that. That then creating the fear for someone to come forth when they go through something like that again. Because there's no basically support group or help system that this individual can go to after they have gone through what they went through. So that was also one of the issues that came up, that they do need support, whether it's a support group amongst themselves, but definitely support should be made visible for them to be able to just feel more safe to share their stories, feel more safe to come out, feel more safe to report the specific issues. And finally, social media platforms must be held accountable. One of the issues that came up as well was that no matter how much they report, whether it's on X, whether it's on Facebook or Telegram, whatever the case may be, whether they report and block the account, there's nothing being done by Meta or whoever holds the license to that specific social media platform. Or even if they do respond, it takes a while before they can actually take down a specific video or specific picture. So if perhaps there's a mechanism put in place for the social media platforms to be held accountable, or for them to just respond much faster than they're doing currently. And also just with stricter moderation policies and content verification systems. X, as of late, is becoming very explicit, as it's now allowing content creators or their users to post and publish even notes and stuff like that. So if maybe we can just strengthen the policies and the content verification systems, that in itself would also help our participants a lot. Now, Namibia stands at a crossroads where digital opportunities and risk coexist. By addressing these challenges, we can ensure that women participate fully and fearlessly in shaping our democracy and society. And this report is a call to action, basically. It's really a call to action to lawmakers, to civil society, to technology platforms, to create a safer, more inclusive digital space for women politicians and journalists, or just the general species as it relates to the female gender. There's a lot to say on this. It is an 80-page report, and we cannot, unfortunately, address everything that we have covered in the report in one session. But I would really urge you to read on it and share your comments, give your feedback. I'm sure Rispa and her team will drop their contact details for whoever wants to gain more information as it relates to the research. But thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions and insights as we continue this important conversation. Over to you, Rispa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica, for that brilliant presentation, and also just for the work that you did with this research, and capturing really what the different voices within in the different stakeholder group were saying around deepfakes. And as you have correctly stated, that deepfakes is getting more smarter, is getting more sophisticated, and also is getting harder to spot. And as we are having conversations around technology facilitated gender-based violence and how to mitigate them, we also need to now go into the nuances around the different manifestations, and also start having awareness building around this, around the different harms that it causes, the different technologies used, also investment in some of the technologies that can be used to ensure that that deepfakes can be easily spotted, and they can be that there can be a recourse for this threat and this emerging harm. So thank you so much for that. I see there was a hand. I would kindly request that we can take all the questions, just have them. We'll have a good amount of time to hear from everyone, not just questions, but also just like your story around deepfakes, and also what you think about the presentations that have been made. So thank you so much, Jessica. And now I would pass on the mic to Theorose from Ghana, who would also talk to us about her experience conducting this research, some of the key findings, and also are there some similarities to what Jessica has shared from her end. So over to you, Theorose.
Hi Rispa, good morning, good afternoon everyone, depending on where you're joining from. I hope you can hear me clearly, but I must admit that the research was very intensive. I uncovered things that I think much attention hasn't been paid to. But I just, unfortunately, I'm not presenting with a PowerPoint, but I wanted to just give a highlight about the internet penetration rate in Ghana. As at 2000, the internet penetration, and internet penetration means the number of people who are active on the internet, was 1.3% actually, which was very low. But in 2020, the 3% has grown all the way to 48%, as well as our normal human population that has grown to 31 million, as compared to 20 million way back. And so the more people are on the internet, the more content of online gender-based violence and content of issues of sharing content that are not appropriate increases. Also, there have been a lot of high influx of mobile internet. There have been now more service providers than we used to have before. Currently, we have 4 different internet service providers. Also, the last census that was collected shows that there are more mobile phones in the country than the human beings. So our total population is 31 million, and the mobile phones are way above that. So it basically shows that one person could be having 2 or 3 mobile phones. Now, I'm starting my presentation with this premise to let everybody on the call know how much access people have to both devices and to internet. Now, in the past, the Ghanaian landscape generally when it comes to gender-based violence in general against female politicians and journalists were not that much. Cases were fewer. You could only hear them in the traditional media. So television, newspapers, you could hear reporters talk about it, but it wasn't very popular until recently, when social media became a thing, where people could easily become citizen journalists, create their own content, and to also share in that cases. So, sorry, the literature review part of Ghana explores the whole premise of when did it start? Before it started, what were some of the content that have been spoken about, and what is the current landscape now? One of the trending thing that happened between 2023 and 2024 was a lot of attack on female journalists particularly, and one of the highlighted key situation for that was one journalist called Sawa Amehem, who was trending for 3 months or more, where she has been allegedly accused of having sexual intercourse with somebody else. Also want to put out that the reason why her story was trending was because she was a journalist. Not because, I mean, not because of the act, because she's not the first to have that act, but she was trending because she was a journalist. There were dotted videos of her and alleged incident that happened. She was pulled off television for so many months. This is somebody who has built her personality, who was hosting one of the prime shows, who has so many brand endorsement. All those things were pulled down. Some of the brands have to pull out of the deal. She and her family has to face online harassment, and if you look through the comment that were trending on X and Facebook and Instagram, wasn't the comment were targeting her personality. So it was targeting her personality, who she was. Some of the comment even went far to talk about her parents, her trainings, and things like that. And it lasted for a long time. She has to report it to the police. There was a report circulating about her report to the police, but the man in question wasn't arrested. Also, the netizens that were sharing the content, to the best of my knowledge, none of them have been arrested because, again, you can't easily trace people online. Some of the commenters were using accounts that are not in their real name. There are no profile pictures and things like that. Aside her, there are other journalists, well-known journalists that have faced different sort of technology facilitated online violence. We have the likes of Belamundi, who also um host prime shows on Media General, and also to just put on record that some of the abuses are not really they are not really sexual, but also about comments that they have passed that have been dotted and misrepresented. Also, we have Gifty Auntie, who is one of the media legends, have worked in television for over 35 years. Host programs. It's She is potentially not potentially, but she is one of the main role model for most young girls growing up. There've been a lot of daughter stories, fake stories spreading around her, and a lot of female journalists that seems to be doing well. Aside journalists as well, we have politicians that face similar situations. We have the outgoing Minister of Communication and Digitalization, Honorable Esla Usu, that have faced a lot of attacks and harassment online. They Aside her as well, one of the member of parliament that I spoke to during my interview for the data collection, Honorable Lydia, also shared experiences about the attack she experienced online, and how some of the content are always attacking their personality, their personality, attacking their gender, and things like that as well. Um, Generally, throughout the research, one of the things that I found out was that the technology facilitated gender-based violence comes in different forms, depending on who you are, your level of public appearance, so how well known you are within that sector would determine how far they could go. Also, I discovered during the interview that especially for female politicians, it's very hard for them to even report it. And also, even if they do report it, it's assumed that, oh, it's part of their work, they are public figures, and so they have to endure that. I got that comment from the interview as well, where the member of parliament made it known that first of all, there are so many accounts that are created in her name with her picture that is not for her, where people use those accounts to extort money from her, and other things. And also, when she is publicly insulted, or she passed a comment that has been dotted and re-edited to mean something else, and she gets the chance to speak about it, some of the comments that follows up after that, it's all about the fact that she's a woman, also about the fact that she's a politician, and so there's nothing she could say that would change that. And it's very, I must admit that it's very toxic, right? Because they don't have any public life. Everybody just assume that because they are in the limelight, they have to endure that. Similarly for the journalists as well, I think that for the part of the journalists, I found that very sad and very stressful, in the sense that they have to be pulled offline because the media houses they are affiliated with would not really want to continue the scandal if it spans over a long time, because it could affect them, the TV or the radio station. It could affect their viewership. It could affect the general the general perception that people have about the media. So naturally, when things like that happen, they pull them off air as well. This report was carried out prior to the election. Election happened on December 7th. But even after that, I noticed that during the election period, there have been a lot of circulating videos that are doctored or hate speeches against female politicians specifically during the current election. So it just goes further to affirm the research that it does happen. It's more popular during elections, but generally during the year, they both journalists and politicians do face one form of attack or the other. Now, in terms of the data collection aspect as well, had interview with participants. So I spoke to journalists, I spoke to politicians, I spoke with researchers. And for the focus group discussions, the focus group discussion is made up of both journalists, researchers, people in academia, and also people who work at the Cybersecurity Authority in Ghana. We have this blend and diversity because all of them play an important role. One of the key findings is that, first of all, there is less research in that area. So we do have research on gender-based violence generally. We do have research on online platforms and the existence of abuse, but there's not been much research that is targeted to specific stakeholder group. And so our research is came in time and is very important, where it's focusing on just politicians and female journalists. But generally, one my top three findings was one that there is no well-known existing policies that would be used against technology facilitated gender-based violence. There's no known policy work in that regards as at the time we did the research. We do have the Cybersecurity Act, but it's only focusing on children and not grown-ups, so it still doesn't cover much in that regard. And so since there is no policy work, there's nothing to set a precedent. There is nothing to use as a guide to prosecute people, actually. Also, until recently, also we realized that there is no specific law that comes with a punishable that comes with a punishment for anyone that conducts such an act, right? So if a journalist or politician is abused online, there is no law that clearly holds them accountable to that regard. So even if you report to the police, the question is, should they be arrested? If they arrest them, what charges are they pressing against them? What is the punishment for that? How long do they have to stay in jail? Do they have to be jailed at all? Questions like that were coming up, and to the best of my knowledge, there've not been any policy work in that area as well. Secondly, we also realize that there are a lot of people who hold the title of expert in those areas, but also we notice that their expertise are not very detailed, especially during our focus group discussion. One of the participants drew our attention to the fact that everybody's assuming that they are expert researchers in gender-based violence and things like that, but also their ability to give solutions or to provide answers to some of the questions, and also to provide answers to some of the things that were happening is not working. And so they recommended that instead of it's not they recommended that much attention be paid to the content and providing solution instead of just using the word or claiming to be an expert. But overall, one of the findings is the fact that people are not media literate, and so there was a recommendation that people be given more education and more training, and to literally train them, so provide them with media literacy skills that allows them to identify a gender-based violence incident, technology facilitated gender-based violence incident, for example, teach them how they could handle such a situation. Because for journalists, it's becomes and for politicians as well, it becomes harder on how to handle them, because also they are public figures, they are role models, they are brand ambassadors. They cannot go around it as a normal person would do, if I should put it in that sense. And so providing them with media literacy skills help. So another recommendation was organizing training sessions that are targeted only to journalists, sharing with them this report, telling them telling them what form those abuse comes in. Because again, most of the times when we talk about technology, gender-based violence, things like that, most focus is on the video format, but it could also come in a text format. So somebody shares a tweet about them. That is also a form of violence, depending on how the content was given. It could also be hate speech. It could be content that are also circulating during through the traditional media. And so having a media literacy training for them helps, or even providing media literacy toolkit or pointers that they could use as a guide, and things like that help. Another recommendation is, especially focusing on Ghana, it's to ensure that we have a policy recommendation for the government of Ghana or for the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, where they could use as a guide to kind of to establish a well-known bill or law that allow victims to report such cases. And finally, also that another recommendation was that institutions, both researchers and those in academia, should focus on also having research works that are targeted towards solving those issues and providing actionable and doable recommendations that can be taken. So that is it. Generally, I think that the research personally for me was very insightful. It's a domain that I work in, but I did uncover a lot of things that it's not well spoken about. Also, one of the things that shook me was the traditional perception of things where people are not vocal because also nobody believes them, or also because they are women, and things like that. And also the nature of the comments. And so, as I said earlier, most of the comment and attacks were not really on the people, but it was on the agenda. And so, like, because she's a woman, the videos are more like she's not well trained. She's sorry for my language, but she's a prostitute. She's A and B, attacking her gender, but not really the issue at hand. And also for the incident that happened, for the sexual incident, most of the comments are targeted towards the woman and not the man. However, both of them were allegedly in the act, but the man seems to be spared and the woman seems to be taking it all. And even there have been jokes about the man leveraging on the comment about the woman to build his online viewership and his numbers getting up and things like that. So it is real, and so sensitization, education, and things like that should be taken about. So thank you, Rispa, but I'm open to comment and feedback.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Theorose. Thank you for setting the ground and also talking about the social cultural impact and beyond the social cultural impact, the professional and also the psychological impact of deepfakes, and also touching on the need to really go deeply into also looking at the different stakeholders when we're talking about capacity building on sensitization, what targeted sensitization would look like, so that different stakeholders can get different content that are relevant to their space in tackling this emerging threat. I guess for now, those are the two in-country researchers that we'll hear from. We'll also have another session to hear from the Senegal and from the Francophone region, what this research look like. But for now, I think Theorose and Jessica, you've done a great job in sharing some of them key highlights and key recommendations that were coming up from the research that you did. Now, without further ado, I will open up the floor for any questions. Please just raise your hand. I will call you to the mic, or feel free to post your question on the chat. It can also be a comment, observation. You can also share some of your reflections with your different in your different country, with your different work. So yes. I saw earlier on there was a hand from Stephen Fosso. Stephen, do you want to come in now? Any questions for the research report?
Yeah, this is John. Thanks, RISPA, and everyone who has presented. Just curious, do we have any data or a general understanding of who these deepfakes affect the most? Is it the men or the ladies? That would be my first question. And second one, I first heard about deepfakes in 2017 when there was a video of Barack Obama going around trending in the social media. And then I started following up like with these things. And then it happened in Kenya around the same time when some people stole the identity of our president, Uhuru, and they actually called the Kenya Revenue Authority and they were able to solicit some money from there. So one of the recommendations made in this presentation is to have the policies. And I agree with that because I had some discussions during that time, like what would happen to that person who impersonated President Uhuru. And then there was a discussion that there were no rules for persecuting such cyber crimes like the impersonation. So my interest is did this report or this the research here identify how these policies would be implemented and maybe some of the gaps that are missing in the existing legal frameworks and those kind of things.
Thank you, John. I think we can take that question and then we can move to, I see there's a raised hand.
Hi, Rufsa. Do you want us to answer that and then we move to the next?
Yes, yes, yes. Please.
Oh, okay. So I could start. So from my research, one of the things that so the first question was what gender it affects. I think generally in Ghana, I would say it affects the women more. And also, just to be fair, that this research particularly was targeting female politicians and journalists. So my search was based on that, and so it could also be that men are affected. But just to put out there that I haven't dug deep into that aspect. So, but generally on the surface of things that I have seen and witnessed, I think the women are at the forefront more also because Ghana is traditional, I would say. We are still struggling with gender role and what a woman is supposed to do and not to do. It's better, I admit, but we are still struggling in that area. So for example, if a woman or two people are accused of a sexual misbehavior, in as much as the man is guilty as the woman, because both of them were in the act, the focus was more on the women. So as I said, the women were up front. I think there's the second question was whether there is an existing policy. Please correct me if that is it. But there is, to the best of my knowledge, there is no existing policy specifically to tackle issues of online gender-based violence. There is no specific policy. There are policies for domestic violence. There are policy for online abuse for children. They even have like the Cybersecurity Act that spells out clearly what an online abuse is for children, the punishment and things like that. But there's none. I stand to be corrected. There is none for grown-ups, so people who are 18 years and above that face abuse online. There is none for them at all in Ghana. And so that was part of our recommendations, that there should be one which is clearly spelled out, well known for everybody. And it's not only, it shouldn't only be for women, but generally for grown-ups, or that like policy works in that regards. I don't know if I've answered all, but I'm still open to expand on it if I miss something else.
Thank you. There is Jessica. Do you have anything to add?
Yes, similar to what Theoros has mentioned, in Namibia, it's mostly the women that suffer from technology-facilitated gender-based violence. Well, when we speak about the deepfakes as a tool in itself, both genders obviously go through AI-generated footage. But if we are narrowing it down to violence, it's mostly women. As mentioned, when two people are exposed for sexual activities, the woman is mostly the one that largely gets the discredit from that specific footage. Also, just because for Namibia, we have the zebra stripe 50-50 parliamentary thing. And as of late, between 2016 and 2024, women have been coming to the forefront in leadership positions. But just apart from videos, images, and so on, the verbal abuse that comes with women stepping into power. A recent example is that we got our first female president that is now being referred to Mekulu. Mekulu in our language is basically grandmother, right? And there were people in that same position that are older than her, but no one ever referred to the gentleman as grandfather. But because it is a woman, she's getting all sorts of names that is discrediting her value of being in office. But when it comes to really gender facilitated violence, it mostly targets the journalist in Namibia, not really to a degree the politicians, because we do not have laws that can basically address defamation of character, or we don't have data protection laws, we don't have cybercrime laws. So there's a huge fear for people to attack politicians because they're scared of being sued or being taken to court. So they would mostly pose those attacks on journalists because it will go to the media ombudsman, and because there's only one person in the media ombudsman, there's nothing really that will be done to it. So it's mostly journalists that face the attacks in Namibia, and to a certain degree, women politicians, depending on the situation, their role, so on and so forth. And it's always just around either their dress code, how their appearance, and namesaying, but we have not really suffered incidents of videography and intense imagery. During the 2024 elections, the only video that circulated was the one of the female presidential candidate after she had won elections. And before that, it was one of the male candidates, Dr. Itula, who is now the official opposition to the SWAPO party. Rispa, please help me. The second question was?
The second questions were on policies, if there are any policies on that targets really on the technology facilitated gender-based violence, and specifically on deepfakes.
Thank you, Rispa. Unfortunately not. We do not have any existing laws. The only thing we have currently standing is a draft cybercrime bill that has been in draft mode for the past 5 years. So we don't have a specific law that speaks directly to technology facilitated gender-based violence in Namibia.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was finding my microphone. Thank you so much, Jessica and Theoros, for those clarifications. And to also just to add one thing is that the research was qualitative in its nature, and it was really to just find we had already had target group who are women journalists and women in journalism and politicians, and the focus was to find case studies on how deepfakes has been used as a tool for technology facilitated gender-based violence for their work. But it also would be quite interesting to perhaps do a quantitative research on widespread of deepfakes and how it's manifesting in the different for the different genders, and also really maybe start from what deepfakes is, because also that came out a lot as a source of contention, and also limited understanding and knowledge on what that was. I see that we have two hands, and also there are some questions on the chat. Would start with Hilengiwe Dube.
Thank you so much for the question, and also thank you for the work that have been put into putting together the report. I'm just looking at the technical complexity of deepfakes, and I heard, I think, the presenter from Ghana talking about the challenges around law enforcement or making any arrests. And I just want to find out whether, for those that have presented the Ghana context and also in Namibia, whether they think that their law enforcement agencies and related bodies, do they have the capacity, when you're looking at the technical complexities around the deepfakes, do they have the capacity, are there any trainings that are being undertaken on any relevant resources that are being used to respond to the threats, especially within the context of an election, where you have to respond in real time and as urgently as possible. Also, just allow me to also ask another one, that looking at this research, that it's in the context of an election, a political environment. I just want to find out whether, from the research, you looked into the extent to which political parties, especially focusing that, that is where the political candidates mainly come from, those that are from political parties, and also maybe independent candidates, whether these entities shifting their approach and looking at issues of technology, and finding ways of resisting or responding to the use of deepfakes as part of their what I would call electoral strategies. And then lastly, just framing for us some of the specific challenges that the research found out in terms of the challenges posed to electoral integrity in the context of our continent. Like, what do these deepfakes within the context of the research, what challenges do they pose to electoral integrity? Thank you. I hope I was audible. Thank you.
Yes, you is audible. We have three questions from you on the technical complexities, and if the law enforcement agencies and bodies have the capacity to handle this, and specifically in the context of elections. Another questions on whether the research looked at the political parties and how the political parties are shifting their strategies in the context of now technology and elections, and also the last ones on the last questions on framing the findings, looking at election integrity. So with those three questions, I think Firoz, perhaps you can just talk about the first question, and then Jessica can come in and handle the second and the third question.
Okay, perfect. So the first question, first of all, I must admit that those are Legit points and good questions. Because of the diversity of the platform, it's so hard to trace people online. When you can't find their IP addresses, when they're using VPN, when they're not using their real names and things like that. So I do admit it's hard, but I also think it is possible if the law enforcement works with the cybersecurity authority, because the cybersecurity authority have expertise. In the past 4 years, Ghana has been focused on digitalizing and investing in digital infrastructure. So I would say that the cybersecurity authority of Ghana is well developed and have resources that if they partner with the law enforcement, it could work. However, law enforcement on its own, this is my own opinion, but law enforcement on its own, I doubt if it will work much, because first of all, they don't have the expertise. They will not be able to digitally trace people as much as the trained people would do. Yeah, so that should, for me in Ghana, that is what I see. I know the law, the just also acknowledge that the police service in Ghana is doing well. They are also investing in digital trainings. Interested, some of their workers are taking internet governance related courses, but again, that is just few. Which may not solve the problem at hand currently, looking at the diverse nature of the internet and the fact that it spans across. So even some of the abuses may not be generally coming from residents of Ghana. They may be Ghanaians staying outside of the country who are doing that. We just can't know. So it takes so much resources. And I think the goal of this presentation is to spark conversations, to identify portals, and to open it up for potential solution. It's not something that can be solved in a day. It will take a while, but I think there is potential if they partner with the cybersecurity authority, or even NGOs that are focusing on doing this type of research to help expand it. So I guess in my point, team voice. But Rispa, just to finally just in 30 seconds share on the question about what the politicians are doing. I think for Ghana, there have also been a swift change in that regards. Political parties are now being intentional about their social media platforms. They are being intentional about how they use the platform to reach people. If you see, for the first time in history, Ghana has a female vice president, the first time ever in more than 60 years. When the party showed her off as the incoming vice president, of course, there have been a lot of videos and attacks on her marriage, her personality, the fact that who will be the first gentleman, because we don't know the known, issues in that regards as well. But I think for the first time, the political party that she belongs to intentionally ignore such questions and focus on her achievement and the reason why she's qualified. It doesn't mean like the attacks were not there, but I think the party communication did well by trying to stray away from that conversation of if she's a real woman, who her husband is, if she's not able to keep a marriage, can she keep a can be such conversations and comments to her achievement and why she deserves to be, and the fact that aside being a wife, she is well educated and equipped for the position. So it's been bad. It's naturally or generally elections in Ghana or political parties have been aware of how powerful the internet is, I would say, since 2020. So prior to that, they've always been doing things traditionally through TV, radio, and things. And so now they are working on it. It's not the best, but it's better than what it was before. Thank you.
Thank you, Theodorus. Jessica, go ahead.
Right. Just to answer the first question on capacity and complexities as it relates to law enforcement. In Namibia, I would like to call us a very special case in terms of everything, when it relates to everything, not just technology facilitated gender-based violence, but my country is slightly far behind when it comes to so many things. For a law or bill to be drafted and enacted, it takes about 7 to 9 years. The current data protection draft bill, the reason why it has not been finalized is because the system that was used to draft the bill was Braille, because whoever was working on it was visually impaired. So when that person passed during COVID, it became stagnant because no one could take over from where they left off because of the type of system that they were using. Are we capable? Yes, we are. I think it's just ignorance. And even though the bills are drafted and passed, they still collect dust because there's a failure in implementation. The same with our recently passed Access to Information Bill of 2020. We have been crying for it for such a long time. But now that the bill is enacted, how to implement it is where we are stuck. So I believe perhaps the policymakers should go through some sort of training. I can't speak on their behalf because I don't work in office, but there's really a lot of work that can be done within the law enforcement sector of my country. And I think one of the things that we're struggling with also is because our judiciary is extracted from the Ministry of Justice, and then within the ICT ministry, there are so many different departments that focus on specific issues. When tackling issues such as technology facilitated gender-based violence, it's normally under conversations that relate to digital rights, or it's mostly under human rights related context, but not specifically to that agenda. So those are basically the type of conversations that take place, and then you'll hear a little bit about technology facilitated gender-based violence, so on and so forth. But I would stand to say that civil society in Namibia are the drivers of implementations of these laws. And with or without the laws, the civil society sector in Namibia really pushes to ensure that there's some sort of visibility as it relates to that, and that the general citizens know their rights as it relates to even just online gender-based violence, referring them to Resolution 522 and things like that. But my country is really, really far behind when it comes to to this type of conversations. The second question was on electoral integrity. I was fortunate to observe the Ghanaian elections on the 7th of December and the Namibian elections, but I'll speak specifically to the Namibian elections. As you all know, the one-day election extended into 3-4 days due to the lack of ballot papers. That in itself created a whole commotion around social media. And apart from that, just leading up to the elections, before the manifestos were launched, it was very peaceful and quiet, and no one was saying anything as it relates to elections intensely, like they did after the manifestos were dropped. But when the manifestos came out, there were manipulated manifesto statistics, especially targeting the ruling party. And that specific party is the one that had the female presidential candidate, where they were basically saying that all the content within their manifesto was ChatGPT generated, and nothing authentic was written by the political party in their manifestos. So by addressing those issues, she was basically belittled. Her integrity was questioned already before elections, during elections, and after elections. Electoral integrity, to a certain degree, in the Namibian context, we are actually questioning the electoral integrity as it stands right now. We are not happy with the ECN and how things were handled. The fact that they deregistered political parties before elections, the fact that they were not disclosing or being transparent with the court process and cases that were standing in court. There's just the procurement of the ballot papers. A lot happened before elections, during elections, and after election that is actually for the first time in Namibia questioning the electoral integrity in the country. Far-fetched from the topic that we are having right now, but in a sense to say that it is contributing to the fact that we have lost trust in the government and the ECN as it relates to elections. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Ndube.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica, for that overview, and also Theoros for the responses. We still have 3 questions on, and actually one is a comment. I'll go to the chats now, and then we can get back to, I saw a hand from the participants. So there's a comment here from Tahir saying the issue of gender-based violence is very deeply ingrained in society. I was reflecting on the obscenities commonly used in almost all languages. You will note the focus on female sexuality. I think there is need for grassroots movement to address these issues. Absolutely, because this violence happens at the grassroots. So if the grassroots understand the problem, then they are they're part of the solution. They're part of formulating strategies that will work for the different communities within the countries. And then I see from Rylene, hi, we appreciate the research done by many organizations on tech facilitated gender-based violence, online violence at large, but how are we engaging the concerned education ministries in the various countries to put premium on MIL and cyber attack courses in the syllabuses? Considering that has been a consistent recommendation across similar research. I guess this is a question on how to engage education ministry in the various countries to put premium on media and information literacy and cyber attack courses. I see Jessica, you're on mute. Do you want to come in?
Yes, I would like to address the question. We have basically lost all hope in going through government offices when it relates to on-ground work. So as mentioned, what civil society in Namibia is doing is that they have established a whole department that solely focuses on media literacy and cyber attack courses under the Institute of Public Policy Research, the Namibia Fact Check, and then the Namibia Media Trust. So they are dealing largely with all sorts of workshops, bridge courses, refresher courses to just basically help the general public understand their basic rights and how to navigate the internet, so on and so forth. It's why I'm saying we have lost all hope by going through government is because it takes time for them to actually do the work. So what civil society then did was to take initiative and start developing their own workshop sessions, travel through the regions, do podcasts, have webinar sessions to just educate the general public on those discussions. But I will commend the Ministry of ICT because they have established a thing where they have consultations with various stakeholders once every quarter of the year. So they basically have an open conversation with whoever wants to ask questions to the ministry or just have general discussions on certain laws, so on and so forth. But what they don't do is tick off on the discussions that were had in those consultation rooms. There's no feedback. I think that's our only struggle with the Ministry of ICT, that we're having discussions, we're having conversations, their doors are open, but there's a slow response when it comes to basically acting on the discussions that were held. So we are engaging these ministries. I, for one, during the research in Namibia, contacted the Ministry of ICT, contacted the Communication Regulator Authority, and they were forthcoming. Two of my key informants are from the Communication Regulator Office, and the other one from the MICT, as well as their standing committee on ICT chairperson. They were forthcoming to really assist during the research. But I believe there's more that can be done in my country. because people are open. Everyone's willing to contribute. Everyone's willing to volunteer. Everyone's willing to just chip in. But there's no action from the ministry's end. So we've basically lost hope in them and just decided to take initiative and run with it.
Very well said, Jessica. And also that just goes ahead to affirm what Tahir has put on the chat around grassroots movements to address these issues. And in these grassroots movements can look differently. It could be different stakeholders coming together to start putting actions towards addressing this issue. I don't know if Rose, you have anything else to add? Then we can come.
Yeah, could you please repeat the question for me, please?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The question is how we are engaging education ministries in the various countries to put premium on media and information literacy and cyber attack courses in the syllabus.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rispa. I think in terms of educational institutions, I think in Ghana, our focus and training has been on university education. So we have, for example, School of Journalism that has a whole semester-long course on media and society. Of course, School of Journalism is also the premium school that trains journalists and public relation officers in Ghana, established in the 1960s. And that's all they do. They just run those two courses. So they have programs on in that regard. There is not, to the best of my knowledge, there have not been much done in primary schools and secondary schools, which I think is the gap where we think that until they get to the university, we can't really teach them those courses. There are also areas in the courses in the university that say courses like medicine or business admin and the rest that do not have media literacy at the core. It's just the onus just lies on the professor in charge then to decide to mention it or not, but there's not been much improvement in that area. So I think again it's one of the gaps that needs to be worked on, where media literacy trainings is it's cut across. I know also on individual capacity that NGOs, non or grassroots organizations, individuals are targeting media literacy now and have been outspoken and hosting campaigns more than it used to be in the past. But they are doing it on individual or non-governmental organization basis. And so I guess I would recommend that collaborating with the Ministry of Education to make it, to develop a course for it, or at least being taught from both primary all the way up to the university helps, because these harms are not only limited to grown-ups, it's also limited to children. Everybody is susceptible and everybody is a potential spreader of that information. So yeah, that is what I have to add on that side.
Thank you, Rose. Very well said. Jessica, I saw your hand.
Yes, I would not do justice to what I said if I don't mention collaboration, as Theoros mentioned. For us, we can really say thank you to the international organizations, the Center for Human Rights in Pretoria being one of them, because they really keep the ministries on their toes. When there's an outside voice, when there's outside collaboration, be it the Center for Human Rights, be it CIPESA, be it UNESCO, they take the work more serious. So I think it's equally important to also look at cross-border collaborations in as much as we are looking at internal collaborations, because they then also just hold us to account as it relates to the Malabo Convention, so on and so forth. So I think that is also one important factor that we can look at in Africa, to really just collaborate within the continent and look at best practices. What is Ghana doing that Namibia is not doing that we can learn from? What is South Africa doing that Namibia is not doing that we can learn from? And how can we consolidate and basically also just create coalitions that can speak to this specific issue? Understand, if we can come together from different African countries and say that we are developing a working group or coalition that specifically addresses technology-facilitated gender-based violence within Africa, I think that in itself will be a good drive force for us to move forward as a continent. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Jessica. And now I will give the floor to Stephen Fosu. I saw your hand.
Okay, thank you, Rispa. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm sorry earlier on I was in a meeting, so that's why I couldn't ask my question. One thing I also observe in Ghana is in Ghana one of the issues is that many of the people who abuse women in journalists are mostly affiliated with political parties. Example, I don't know whether Theoros captured that in his research. There's a young man who comes on social media every day, come to abuse, especially women, when you don't belong to their political party. And because he's back with one of the major political parties in Ghana, he just say anything, and then nobody cares or nothing is done to him. And some of them, I think, recently, some of the issues that we're having with, how do you call it, some male journalists also abusing female journalists. I mean, calling them all sort of names because they declare their stand for one political party. So the issue that times slow down this politician passing certain laws because now they are using this sort of people who comes online to abuse other people based on their political affiliation. So because of that, it's making certain laws. It's making certain laws difficult for them to pass. I was having a discussion with one member of parliament, and was saying they have gone on one of their meetings to come out with this kind of how do you call it I mean this kind of laws to we want to pass a law about the abuse, online abuse. But the issue is that because some of these politicians are using these people as a tool to attack people who don't belong to their political party, it's making them find it difficult to pass this law. So I don't know whether Theoros, when you were having your research, you come across people complaining that because of one belong to a political party. No, some of them, we know them that they can be arrested, but because they are behind a big man, police are finding it difficult to, arrest them, because when you go there, order from above, you lose your job. So these are some of the things that is causing most of the issue with people abusing, especially women, online. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your reflections and also some of the experiences you've seen. Theoros, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Stephen, for sharing that. And I do affirm with you that you have a great point. When I was doing the research, as when I interview the member of parliament, one of the things that she pointed out is the fact that there is a delay in prosecution when report to the police. It goes back and forth and the people are not persecuted. I also agree with you about the person you mentioned. I'm not going to mention it on record because again, we all assume you all know, but I didn't include it in it because I do not have any evidence of such. So I also don't want to write a report on assumption and what I know. It is obvious, but again, if somebody calls me and say, what evidence, what shows that this person belongs to party A, it's just what I know, and based on what the person is sharing. And I think for a scientific report, that is not good enough until I have an evidence. But I do agree with you that we have bloggers and citizen journalists. Citizen journalists are people who have not had the formal training of journalists, but they are vocal. We have social media influencers that are affiliated with a political party that are even allegedly paid to conduct such an attack on journalists. They do exist, that I confirm with you, but in the research, that has not been mentioned with all the interviews that we did. There have been speculations and accusations, but again, there is no concrete evidence to say Kofi is paid by Honorable this to do that. So I didn't include it in it, but my discussion with the member of parliament also even affirms that some of the policies realistically could be passed. And she even pointed out that she served on some of the committees, and the back and forth is like it's unnecessary, but somebody at the top is holding on without passing the bill for his or her own reason. So Stephen, I hope that clarifies much. One other aspect is, again, like journalists and politicians generally do have the right to belong to a political party. But however, the GJ Code of Ethics affirms that journalists are supposed to be neutral, but also realistically, we, both of us and everybody on the call, do know that journalists are not neutral. The political landscape has spoiled everything, but I still want to insist that irrespective of whatever political party they belong to, the attacks are still not warranted. It's not right. Like taking out politics, taking out who they are still normal human beings. And so if there's an issue, for example, with the Sewa Amehe story, like there've also been accusation and incident that she belongs to party A, but the videos that were trending was not affecting the party, it was affecting her personality. She was pulled off TV, she lost brand deals, she became household names with insult day in, day out. She is affiliated with a political party, it's obvious, we all know that, but the attacks goes beyond that. And so it's one of the recommendations we are focusing on. That, for example, if me, who am affiliated with a political party, has the same situation, my treatment will be different because I'm not in the limelight. But Steve, just to say, I do agree with all that you said, that they do exist, and I did uncover them, but again, I don't have factual evidence backing them, so it's not in the report, but it exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Theorose. Thank you, Stephen, for the question. We have less than 10 minutes to the top of the hour. I would like to see if there's any other question or any other comment in the room, because this session was actually to get us having this sort of discussions beyond the presentations and all that. So I'm happy that we have asked questions and we've engaged. But before we close this segment, I just want to pause a bit, see if there's any other comment or question. Okay. Yes, so thank you so much for staying with us for the 2 hours and engaging in the launch of this report. We are very much excited that is officially launched, and you can download it, you can have read it, and if you have any questions, you can always write to us. This is just one of the discussions or webinars that we'll have. We'll have plenty, just to look at the different findings and also to hear what different stakeholders have to say about the findings, and also what strategies we can collaborate together in terms of ensuring that the recommendations don't just stay in the report, but are actually enacted within the different countries and also within the continent at large. This launch will not be complete without few gratitude, without mentioning some of the great brains that went into this research report. And I would like to just take this moment to thank first of all, the in-country researchers for the amazing work, the passion and the heart that they put into this research. And you could also just hear from the presentation that they've made that this was just beyond a deliverable, but just really wanting to create solutions in solutions to curb technology facilitated gender-based violence in their different countries. And also, I would like to say a great thank you to our principal investigators. This report was guided by 3 principal investigators, Josephine Miliza, Moira Gishanga, and Sarah Kiden, who worked to ensure that we have this research report completed. We also benefited from comments and guidance from 2 anonymous reviewers, and also the report was edited by Maytol Kufa, who provided her editorial expertise, as well as Enoch, who provided design and layout for the report. And the amazing illustrations was the work of Gloria Muthoka, who just supported us in terms of ensuring that the report looks great and appealing. I also want to thank Tanda Community Network, who have been amazing in coordinating this work and also ensuring that the report is a success. And also a huge gratitude to our participants, those who participated in the research, in the key informant interviews, in the focus group discussions. Massive thanks to you for your insights and also helping to shape the research reports and also strategies in combating this digital shadow. Also, participants who've been able to join this webinar, thank you for your time and also for engaging with the in-country researchers with our research report. We are officially launching it today, and we are hoping that it will benefit the work that you're doing and that it can create more and more collaborations towards really coming up with strategies to ensure that the solutions that and recommendations are implemented within our different spheres in our countries. This research study and this, as I finalize the round of gratitude, I would want to say a special thank you to CIPESA. CIPESA is a collaboration on international ICT policy for East and Southern Africa, and want to thank you for your support to do this research work, and just to say that we were honored to be able to carry out this research in the context of the Africa Digital Rights Fund. Massive thank you to CIPESA team. With that said, there is definitely more to be done, and we hope that this discussion will continue. This discussion will just keep evolving in your different work and spheres, and hope to collaborate as I mentioned. And if we have an environment that rewards deepfakes or false information, people's voices will be silenced, and it will be usually those of women and other marginalized communities. So we have a responsibility to ensure that that we are coming up with strategies to ensure that we have less and less of technology facilitated gender-based violence. And always at the core of our work is to have the people who are harmed and who are attacked by gender-based violence online, such as human rights defenders, as marginalized community journalists, centered within the solutions that we are making. So it would be great to continue this conversation, looking at how to center, how to use human-centered design in our solutions and approaches. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. I think I'll stop there as of now. You can find the reports on our website. You can download it and have a great time reading through it. We'll also have another session for with the Senegal in-country researcher, just to understand what this look like for Senegal as a French-speaking country. I'm welcoming you all. We'll be sharing more details as the time goes. So thank you, and have a good rest of the day and a good rest of the year. Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you, Rista.